So welcome to Unit 32, Employability Skills Level 1. So this is the job interview skills unit, and I'm going to go through the questions with you now. So question 1.1. What type of information would be useful to have before the interview? Include how you would ensure you arrive at a suitable time. So here they want to see that you are well prepared for any job interview that you're going to have. So let's just imagine you were going for a job interview. You need to know where you're going. So it would be useful to have the address of the venue. It would be useful to maybe have a bit of research that you'd done previously about the company. It might be useful for you to have some details of the job role that you're going to be doing, just to remind yourself. And maybe walk with the job description, have a look at that. So you would also want the name and contact details of the person that is conducting the interview, and that's just in case there are any problems in terms of getting there, or you're going to be late. You need to know who you're going to call. So I would always advise bringing a copy of your CV or a copy of the application form that you completed as well. So you can, if you get there early, you can just remind yourself of all the information that you gave to the organisation. So how are you going to make sure? So the second part of the question was saying, how are you going to ensure that you arrive at a suitable time? So obviously you're going to have to look at the route. So you're going to have to look at some sort of map. The day before or before the interview, a couple of days or a day before. You might want to check out bus and train timetables, any car parking if you're going to drive, and you might want to find out how long the journey is going to take so that you can plan your route and know what time you're going to leave home. So that's the kind of information. Again, try to think of other examples. I've given you quite a few examples. Try to think of some other ones if you can. Question 1.2. Describe what interviewers will be expecting with regards to the following. So there's four key areas that they put down: punctuality, dress sense, behaviour and language use. So if we address punctuality first. So punctuality, what will they be expecting? So they're obviously going to be expecting that you're going to arrive on time. They're not going to be expecting that you're going to be late. And in fact, they'd probably want you to arrive I'd say about 10 to 15 minutes early, so that you make sure you're on time for the interview. Dress sense, obviously they're going to want to see that you're clean, smart, and you're dressed appropriately for the company and for an interview. And the reason I say dressed appropriately, because you need to look at the organisation, and quite often people say, oh yes, I'll put a suit on. It might not be necessary to wear a suit and tie. Obviously, if you were going for a managerial job or an office job, yes, a suit and tie would be acceptable. If you're a male, or if you're a female, a blouse and a skirt, or a blouse and some trousers. But if you were going for a job that was more casual, say you were going for a warehousing job, or a job, a manual labour job, maybe a plumbing job or something like that, you may be okay just wearing a smart, clean polo shirt and some cargo pants. So really have a think about the type of job that you're going to be going for and dress appropriately. But they'd always want you to be smart. Even if you're casual, they'd want you to be smart and clean and well presented. So in terms of behaviour, how would they expect you to behave at an interview? So they'd obviously expect you to behave in a very professional way. They'd expect you to be polite. They'd expect you to have a positive attitude towards the company and towards any questions. And obviously they're going to want you to be responsive. I've had reports about people going for interviews wearing earphones or chewing gum. So obviously, you need to really think about the type of behaviour that they would expect at an interview. And the final one, which is language use, again, they want you to be polite and professional. They want your language to be clearly understood, so not mumbling, speaking clearly, not using slang or jargon, not swearing when you're giving your answers. Sometimes people put swear words as you know, when they're talking. That can be quite that's going to be something that is definitely a no in terms of language. And just think about slang and jargon, like I said, and just making sure that your language use is relevant to the job. Okay, so that's question 1.2. Now, question 1.3, it's the information that is asked there can be obtained from Unit 33. So you don't actually have to do anything for 1.3 if you've completed Unit 33, because we will cross-reference this with Unit 33. So you should see on your sheets, it will just say CCV Unit 33. So 1.3 is already covered. 2.1, this is looking at demonstrating now appropriate dress sense and punctuality to make the right first impression. So what that question is, just wants to go into a little bit more detail than on the previous page, about your dress sense and about your punctuality. So you could say that to be dressed appropriately for the company you're applying for. What does smart mean to you? So smart usually means formal. It normally means a dark coloured suit, you know, not unless you're going for something in high fashion. You might want to restrict yourself to more conservative colours like navy, black, blue, greys, those kind of colours for a suit. You'd probably be wanting to wear a jacket with trousers, or a skirt, or trousers with a blouse and a jacket if you're a female. And you know, so think about colour. So what type of colours might you want to wear, and really just go into a bit more detail about what you would wear, and maybe go into some detail about the type of job you were applying for. So for example, you could say in this question in 2.1, you could say, I would be going for an office job, therefore I may wear a light coloured blouse and a navy skirt and some black shoes. So you also need to, now I've mentioned shoes, you also need to make sure that your shoes are clean and polished. And that would be really it in terms of the dress sense. So really just going into a bit more detail about what you would wear and the type of job you might go for. So to make sure that you're always on time for an interview, again, you might want to think about planning the route the night before. You might want to think about getting an early night. You might want to think about packing a bag the night before with all the essential things that you're going to take. And you also need to think about arriving maybe 10 to 15 minutes earlier than the actual interview, to make sure that you're there on time. Because sometimes you can get to a workplace and where the reception is, it could be quite a big distance between where the reception is and actually where you're going to be interviewed. And you wouldn't know that sometimes until you get there. So that's really something to think about. That's why I always say try and get there 10 to 15 minutes early. So 2.2, this is for the tutor to do a feedback on your mock interview session. So 2.2, that is not for you as a student to complete, that is for the tutor to complete, and that will be their observation on your mock interview. And if I turn the page, the final page, which is the back page, 3.1 and 3.2. So 3.1 is really for you to identify your own strengths from the actual mock interview. So sometimes you may say things like, I'm going to give you some examples of some sample answers. So you might say things like, I spoke clearly and got to the point when asked questions. I didn't rush through my answers. I answered all the questions and gave the best answers I could. I was able to give an example of what I'd achieved in my last role. I asked a question at the end of the interview. So in terms of 3.1, that's really identifying your strengths from the mock interview. So 3.2 is really identify any areas for improvement. So really have a think about, when you do have the mock interview, you can have a think about any areas that you think you could have improved on, anything that you think you should have said that you didn't say, and any areas that you think you should have covered. So you could say something like, I could improve on giving better examples when answering questions. You could say, make sure I use the situation action result method. Or you could say, I could work on my nerves and preparation so that I come across more confidently. So in terms of the situation action result method, I'm just going to go into that in a little bit more detail. You may have heard of the STAR method, which is situation, task, action, result. I like to keep it to 3, so I'm just going to say situation, action, result. Now, when you're answering a question at an interview, it's always important to explain what the situation was. So you could say, I was working as a shop assistant in a charity shop. That's the situation. A woman came in and she fainted. Yeah, that's what happened. So you put them in the picture without going into too much detail. Now, what action did you take? So I immediately upon seeing this, I checked to see if she was okay. I phoned 999 and I let other members of staff know what was happening. So that's the action that you took. And what was the result? The result was that she was safe and well, and there was minimal disruption to other shoppers in the store. So you could say something like that. So situation, what is the situation? What is the action? And what is the result? Always remember to put those 3 things in any answer that you give, and that will be absolutely fine. So another one is, you could say areas for improvement. You could say, I could work on my nerves and preparation so I can come across more confidently. Now, in terms of working on your nerves and preparation, I always like to give some tips for this as well. So tips for preparation for interviews is doing breathing exercises. That is really, really good for calming your nerves. Just taking some deep breaths, holding it and then breathing out. That is really good for calming your nerves on the spot. Other forms of preparation obviously is reading a little bit about the company and making sure that you have enough knowledge about the job and where you see yourself fitting into the organization, because one of the things that they're looking for is that you're a good fit for the team. And so you need to convince them that not only have you got the skills and the qualifications, but you also need to convince them that you're a good fit for the team. So see where you can fit into the team and where you can add value to the organizations, because they're always looking for things like that. And that's really about it. So until you've really had the mock interview, you probably won't be able to answer this question. So in terms of your strengths and areas for improvement, so you will need to leave this question until you've done your mock interview. But before you do your mock interview, I am going to give a list of typical interview questions, and you can have a look at those and study those, and that will help you when you come to do your mock interview.